You're listening to the CD Baby DIY Music Podcast. Well, this is our 15th episode of the DIY Music Podcast. Can you guys believe it?
Wow.
And here for the roundtable discussion are Chris, Robert, and Jourdan. How's everything going?
Good. Good, resting up from my adventure on the road.
Yeah, so we got to start out with Chris just got back from 2.5 weeks on the road, doing a little tour.
I did. It was fun times. It's tough to get back and answer emails again after all that.
It's not like we have a lot.
Yeah. So tell us, how did it go?
Went really, really well. It had a very slow start. My first 3 shows, there was hardly anyone in attendance, even though I got mega press in all those towns and features in all the newspapers. For some reason, that means no one should come out and see you. It rained in Chico, and I guess Californians don't like rain. So, but then, after that, the rest of the tour was great. Lots of people came out, so I would recommend people going on tour looking into getting a publicist if it's affordable.
Is that what you did?
I did. Had a guy help us out with that, and he did a really good job.
What was the price range that he asked for that?
Well, he has different packages, but I think his normal thing is between $1,000 and $4,000, depending on what you're looking at.
You mentioned something about the LA Times.
Yeah, he got 3 LA Times guys into the record, and they had not received it in time to do anything for this show, but pretty much all of them said next time we go through, we're covered on that front. Cool. And one of the guys came out to the show and really liked it, so.
Yeah, our audience has got to make good use of Chris's sage advice while he's still with us. Yeah. Moving on to the big time.
You have to talk to that publicist and tone it down a bit. Tone it down.
Yeah.
So no breakdown stories, no.
Not this time.
Wow.
No, the last time.
It wasn't a real tour then.
Yeah, that's true. We were so well behaved pretty much the whole time.
You were videotaping it all too, right?
We did a little videotaping for a vidcast, which will be a nightmare to edit. I think there's like 15 tapes worth of nonsense, and I'm trying to think what else. There was just a whole lot of things that happen, which sort of will pave the way for the next one too. It seems every time we go out, we're building upon what we've already set up. Certain shows had 10 or 15 people come out that had seen us last time, in addition to new people just coming out for the hell of it.
It's really cool. You start making those connections are so important.
Yeah. Oh, we did sleep at the Stanford Sleep Lab.
Wow.
That was cool. They didn't test on us, though, so.
Well, as far as you know, they didn't test on you. You were asleep.
It was a really sound sleep, so maybe they were.
Really? They just let people sleep there?
Wow.
No, we had an inn.
A little inn. Oh, okay.
Inn at the Stanford Sleep
The boys
Labs.
at Palo Alto, they're fans of the Fear of Heights.
And you booked the whole tour yourself, right? Or did you have help with that as well?
I did it myself through MySpace and finding some other bands that, sort of did the legwork in each town, as well as just writing clubs, so.
You say other bands, you mean like the whole gig exchange?
Yeah, exactly. So, the idea is they hook us up with something in Phoenix where I don't know anyone, and then if they come through Portland.
And are you contacting mostly bands you already know, have met, or just people you're meeting for the first time?
Both. I looked through actually CD Baby, new releases, as well as MySpace for bands I thought sounded, comparable and seemed like they knew what they were doing. So that worked out well too.
Well, we have lots of stuff to talk about this time. Why don't we start off with a little news from Jourdan?
Longtime digital music holdouts Led Zeppelin announced it will finally make the jump into the digital world. Starting November 13th, Led Zeppelin's catalog should be available through iTunes. More on that will be coming soon. Bucky's very excited about this.
Sometimes working at CD Baby is like working at the Humane Society. There's almost as many dogs as employees.
The recording industry won big in its pursuit of illegal downloaders. Jamie Thomas from Minnesota was ordered to pay $220,000 after the jury found that she had violated copyright laws. Jamie's copyright violation occurred when she made roughly 1,700 songs available for illegal download through the file-sharing network Kazaa. What made this such a landmark case is that it was the first time that the RIAA had argued their case in front of a jury. Jamie maintains her innocence, and she and her lawyer are going to continue with the legal battle through the appeal process. British rock band Radiohead continues to make headlines in its decision to sell its latest album, In Rainbows, directly to fans through their website. In an unprecedented move, Radiohead is allowing their fans to set the price that they will pay, even if that price is zero. Early speculation was that the majority of people would pay nothing at all, but as the numbers came in, it appears that only 1/3 of the people chose to pay nothing, and the average bid was about $21. They even received bids for as much as $145, which is more than 4 times the list price. The band also offered an online package of 2 CDs, 2 vinyl records, and a booklet for about $80, and they plan to release In Rainbows as a single in January for fans who would rather hear the music with a better resolution than the medium quality MP3 file available for download. With all the buzz created around Radiohead, many other high-profile artists are considering the same concept for a future release.
Well, thanks, Jourdan, for bringing us the news. I think it's funny that Led Zeppelin's finally decided to venture out into the digital world. I don't know why they hold out so long. I don't know. It doesn't seem like
Demand.
Well, they all just waiting for their deal like you two got.
Yeah. They want their own branded iPod.
I heard the Beatles, and this is probably just a rumor, but I heard that some rumors of a Yellow Submarine iPod that was going to be loaded with all the Beatles stuff.
Rumors about that too, I think it was back in the summer, but I don't know. I think with that, now that George Harrison just got added to iTunes a couple weeks back, I think there's more speculation that means the Beatles are coming soon, because apparently he was the holdout. But the thing with artists like Led Zeppelin, I read somewhere on the internet they're saying they don't see that it's going to be like a huge windfall of cash for them. That's not like all their fans don't already own the CD and have already ripped it to put on their iPods anyway. But
well, I think it's also like they held out for so long that it's such a big deal when they finally do release it that
it becomes a news item, so people do go and buy it.
Yeah, so that might be the case. I don't know.
And that really does just leave the Beatles, right?
I don't know. There may be some other artists like that have still been kind of dragging their feet, but as far as names that I've been hearing people talk about holding out, I think they're the last ones.
Do you think the Beatles will be there by Christmas?
I think they will be. Yeah. Don't hold me to it, but I think they will be.
All right.
The buzz on the internet, and the internet's never wrong.
Right. The internet is never wrong.
Moving on to the other story, the RIAA suing Jamie Thomas. This is actually pretty scary because I heard an interview with the lawyer, and the thing that's bizarre about them going after her is she had never downloaded anything illegally herself, nor had anyone obtained anything illegally. They were just searching, people that were on Kazaa network and found that she had all these tracks available, and so she was sued because of that.
So they found the person that had done the least amount of wrong and sued her as much money as they could.
Exactly.
Someone that I went to college with, this happened. She came back from class and her internet wasn't working, and she was like, what? So we had a number that was the help desk, and they had this letter from, I don't know if it must have been the RIAA, and I don't know what the dollar amount was. It wasn't anything as big as this, but she had
to pay.
She had to pay, yeah.
They were really cracking down on colleges. So, if you're a college student, I would stay away from that stuff.
You do it once, you do it twice, eventually you're hooked. And,
in this particular case, Jamie Thomas is saying that, she's never been on Kazaa. And I guess it wasn't a very strong argument because apparently the username on the Kazaa account was the same username as some other accounts that she has, whether email or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, who cares? No one had gotten anything from her, and she hadn't taken anything either. And so
just made it available.
Yeah, and I guess the judge had two different instructions for the jury. One said something about distribution only takes place if something changes hands, and then the other one was distribution takes place if you make it available. I guess RIAA's lawyers argued for the instructions that if it's available, it's distribution. So, that brings up a whole lot of copyright violations for anybody, and they're going to appeal on the idea of distribution being just making it available and some other things. But I'm sure that'll continue to make news, and in her case, I feel bad for her because anyone could accidentally sign up for something and not realize what it does, a program. There's other reasons to use Kazaa besides stealing music. And
it's got such a cool name, too. It sounds fun.
Yeah.
Kazaa.
Yeah, exactly.
Kazaa.
So bottom line is you might want to stay away from that. Robert, who BitTorrents everything.
Shut up!
You're next.
People can hear this.
All right, well, let's move on to the discussion about what Radiohead's doing. This has been creating a ton of buzz in the industry. First of all, I've been taking a little informal poll on myself, asking my friends and people here at work whether or not they were going to pay, whether or not they're going to get it for free. And I was surprised that the first handful of people that I had talked to had all paid for it. So purely for research purposes, I had to get it for free. I had to make sure that option really worked.
I don't know. I would never get it for free. I'd feel weird doing that.
Was it you that said you no longer pay for music, or were you saying you no longer buy CDs?
I don't buy CDs. I do pay for music.
Okay.
You would feel weird getting the Radiohead album for free?
From them being like, I'll take it for free.
Well, that's one of my friends said, I don't want to take it for free. That's stealing. I said, it's not stealing if they're giving it to you.
Yeah.
The thing I'm curious about is, everyone thought at first that everyone would take it for free, and it turns out that a lot of people actually paying more than the standard value of a downloaded album. I'm wondering if that's really suggestive of how this would be if everyone did that, or if it's really just the first major case, so we feel like humanity is on trial in a sense, so everyone wants to be generous up
I think
front.
so. A group that has a real loyal fan base and is still alive. Someone put, I don't know, all the Carter family songs up for free or something. And, obviously it's going to extended family at this point because the original members are dead. Are people going to feel the same way? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because everything I've read so far is a lot of industry people are just kind of shrugging their shoulders. They don't get it. And, they don't understand people's true connection with music, I think, a lot of times. And when a band with artistic integrity that's built that fan base over years of continuing to put out quality records, I don't know, sometimes they don't get it. I don't think it'll work across the board for people. I think there may be some ideas to tweak along that. There's so many people that are jumping into this bandwagon all of a sudden. It's just...
Yeah, for instance, if Madonna did it, I bet a lot more people would get it for free.
Yeah.
I think there's just a certain thing with Radiohead that the connection to the band, you want to not steal from them.
Isn't Madonna doing something?
Yeah, speculation is that she's one of the people. She's doing something like that, and I know she signed some deal with a corporation around her tour, and it's an interesting idea. I think it points out one of the things that I always point to when they bring up the argument about CD sales being down across the board. I think most of the sales, the huge slump in sales, are for those iconic pop artists that don't have artistic integrity. It doesn't mean they don't put out a good record here and there, but it's a lot of those people that are more cookie cutter, more just it's all about the look and the forgettable pop song. A lot of people don't see value in paying for that because there's not really this artistic force behind it, where a band like Radiohead, people want to keep this going. And so to me, that's a big difference.
There's also a big difference between an enormous band like Radiohead and an unknown indie band. I mean, the connection I've had with Radiohead's music is so strong and meant so much to me that I want to pay them.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to discover, XYZ band from Iowa I've never heard of, chances are I'm not going to feel compelled to pay them. I might download it, listen to it, and then down the road, if I find myself returning to it a number of times, then maybe I'll buy the CD or actually pay them for the download. But
yeah, and if you're an indie band, I don't think copying the Radiohead model will work for you in the same manner. I mean, you have to build that connection with fans first. I think giving away some music is a good idea to build that connection, but people aren't going to pay 4 times as much for your album when they don't know you.
Oh, in Tucson on my tour, someone paid me $60 for 3 CDs.
Wow.
That was...
So I found this cool blog called newmusicstrategies.com that our New York correspondent turned me on to, and it's by a guy named Andrew Druber. It's really cool, has some great information, and he had an interesting take on the Radiohead thing where he compares the idea of a CD being a physical finite item and a digital file being infinite, and that the two are different and need to be treated as such. That with this Radiohead, they've proven how to approach both those things and have success, where the physical CD has this packaging that's desirable, And, they've got the box set that's $80. And then the digital download, which is something totally different, lower quality. It's just here for the taking. It's a lot less, and the fans get to choose the price. In his blog, he talks about how, that CDs haven't gone down in sales as far as like the way we use them day to day. The mainstream packaging of the CD, packaged CD that, like the pop album, is declined, and partly because the packaging's not all that great on the average record, so there's not that cool physical aspect to it, but it's not much different from a download either. So his whole take on it was pretty interesting, and he kind of reflects that to how Radiohead is making the package something of real value, as opposed to the downloads, where you're obviously getting two different things. Where a lot of CDs, you get them today and you open it up, there's an album cover. I mean, barely even has a fold out, and there's not a whole lot different than what you get with the download. And he is saying that if you really focus those as two separate things, that the physical product would see more success. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. Chris, you do a good job of your CDs. They have a real nice look to it and artwork and everything.
I think he puts money in them too.
He puts money in them too.
I feel like $3 in mine.
You have a sticker on the outside that says "may contain a $100 bill."
I should do like the Wonka ticket for the next album.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's so important, that tactile experience of holding something. I kind of wish we still had vinyl, just for the hugeness of it all. It seems like it's this big document of something historical, but CDs, it's a close second, when you're comparing it to downloads. So
yeah, and in that blog, he was talking about how the download has no value as an artifact. Like
right.
The actual physical album has value that eventually they won't make those anymore.
Right. There won't be any MP3 collectors.
No.
No. I've got 50 MP3s, extremely low quality from the 19th.
They're all lined up perfectly on my shelf so I can look at them. So anyway, that's something we're gonna continue to hear more and more about that, and I think we're gonna hear a lot of stories of how this didn't work for artists, as more people kind of jump in and try to pull something off like this. But I think it's a good change in the music industry, where artists realize that they're not chained to their labels. They don't need a label anymore to have distribution to the world. I mean, it's wide open. I'm surprised more artists haven't done this sooner.
Yeah. Although, there is the argument that it's easy for Radiohead to do that because they've had, 5 records that did really well already. They got to a certain point where they don't need distribution. They don't need a publicist even. I'm sure that once they did this, all the news media latched onto the story. Magnet and Rolling Stone would be happy to have Thom Yorke on the cover just because who they are. But for a small unknown band.
Yeah.
I don't know how well this worked for her. I've followed Joanna Newsom from the beginning, and when she probably her first website or something, she's a harpist, an indie harpist with an interesting voice.
Yes.
Not everybody loves Joanna Newsom.
Sing for us.
She had 5 or 6 MP3s for free download on her website when she started out. And I imagine that she was just trying to create buzz and letting people know who she was, because, she hadn't probably done the world tours that she has now. But, it is definitely an option, and it probably, I don't know how well it did for her, but it probably didn't hurt her any.
Yeah. Yeah. With Radiohead, like you were saying, Chris, they definitely got a ton of free publicity, and that's part of the genius of what they did, is they got so much free publicity.
To get the quote-unquote free download, you have to give all your information, your
That's
address,
true.
your email.
They can, see, now I'm expecting them to stop by for a visit at my house. That's part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
They're going to stop by and go, "You paid nothing." I forgot to mention that one of the people I polled that said they hadn't got the album yet, they were going to download it, and they were going to pay probably a bunch extra because they felt guilty for all the previous albums they had just burned a copy from their friend. So
I didn't pay for it.
I didn't pay for it. Yeah, Robert here, I said, "Are you going to pay for it?" He goes, "No way, I'm not paying for that."
Because you've paid them a lot in the past, right?
No.
No, I just don't buy it.
They've got plenty of money.
Yeah.
Me, I need more money.
I need more money. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a eventful year in the music industry, I'm sure. So, and, the reason I said I'm surprised more artists haven't done this is because, I don't know, I always tell artists that you should probably think more on the lines of counting dollars as opposed to CD sales. And several years back, I think it was like 2001 or 2002, I saw an article that Amy Mann had done this, where she got dropped by every label. And of course, she had the success with the Magnolia soundtrack. Yeah. And it sold millions of copies. But still, no label would really have anything to do with her, so she just sold the physical CD through her website. And she sold a lot less in numbers, but I think when the article was written, it was like 150,000 copies. But she was getting all that money. Every dollar of that $15 was going to her. So she wasn't selling millions, but she was making millions, and it was because she wasn't paying all that other money to other people. So that's why I always tell indie artists, when you're making decisions, you got to think about the actual dollars you're going to make and not...
Right. And how much do you think, are major artists that are signed really getting from an album?
Less than $1. I think especially with indie artists who jump into little indie record deals, they surrender a lot of money to other people for not really much of a purpose, especially with digital distribution. I see people doing that all the time, letting a company handle their digital distribution. And I'm not talking about a distributor like, CD Baby or any of the other people out there that are doing distribution. I'm talking about having a record company handle your distribution so they can turn around and give it to someone like us to get up there. And like, it doesn't make sense for them to take a cut, but artists are more than happy to do that, to say they're on a label. And that's why I'm like, man, you got to think about things and the amount of dollars you can generate as opposed to just someone promising you a lot of sales, because you may not get anything at the end. So.
I have a friend from Massachusetts that there's this really teeny tiny label, and they signed my friend's band just for digital distribution, and then they just use IOTA. It's like, you guys could have, I think they should have gone directly.
Sure, we'll take your money for you. Sign up with us.
You get like 5 cents per download.
Yeah. Well, we had the interview with Jeff Stewart Saltzman, the last episode of the podcast. So we were just going to take a few minutes and reflect on some of the ideas brought up in that interview. He's a great guy. Chris, you've done a couple records with him, haven't you?
I have. One of my own, and then I also played guitar with a friend of mine on her album that he engineered and produced. So I've gotten to know him pretty well.
What was it like working with him?
It's a learning experience. He has like magic ears. He'll just kind of tweak little knobs and levers and pulleys and things, and comes out on the other side like a golden egg.
Wow.
No, the thing he said about getting the sound right going in is totally his mode of operation. He's really careful about up front, and it almost saves so much time in the mixing and mastering phase, because by the time the song is sort of layered and you've got a bunch of tracks, it already sounds mixed. It's really impressive the way he works.
Yeah, he said a couple of really key points, I think. Going into the interview, I didn't know, if he was going to talk about, well, you take a 57 and point it at the amp like this, and that's how you're going to get your guitar sound. But he talked about a lot of more just kind of philosophies of recording, and I thought was really good. The one thing I think that is so funny that if you read recording books, they'll hardly ever mention, but he brought up, was the idea of just using your ears. If it sounds good to you, then that's what you should go for. Believe it or not, so many engineers out there don't approach music that way. It's a very methodical thing, or scientific, but they don't just go, oh, that sounds good. That's not how the book told me to mic the drums, but that sounds really good.
Well, I think everybody, even myself who just dabbles in recording, there's so much information out there, and you're just being barraged. Every time I order something online, I get like 6 new magazines in the mail offering audio equipment.
Speaking of getting all those magazines and things, they're constantly telling you, like, especially the catalogs, showing you the latest and the greatest, and you need these. And it's amazing to hear some of the records that are coming out now, that it's just someone who has 2 microphones and, an inbox going into Pro Tools, or even some people still using some tape machines. And it just sounds amazing just because they're using their ears and they're just tweaking things, that sound good to them. And instead of looking at the miking setup as, okay, the book said put the mic here and there,